Hello, my name is Ashlyn Conlon and I'm the Marketing Manager for the UK Advertising Exports Group, or UKAEG as we like to call it for short. Our aim at the UKAEG is to support the international growth of the UK advertising and marketing services. But I'm not here to talk about that today. Today we're here to have a discussion around the new world that we find ourselves in and what that means for audience. I'm also not going to dwell on the last year as it's something that we've all experienced in real time. However, one thing that is certain is that it has led to the emergence of new processes and protocols, as well as the suspension of the established norms of marketing communications and customer engagement. And on that, I want to jump straight in and welcome our panel today with a question. So welcome to Joel, KIM-LEIGH and Matthew. First question that we have is, for me, in some ways, the world has changed beyond recognition, whether that's the way we work, the way companies are run, or the way consumers behave. Normality has mutated, and I'm really keen to hear how your clients have responded. Joel, perhaps you'd like to take that one first.
Sure thing. Hi, everybody. I'm Joel MISHCON. I'm the founder and CEO of Chrome Productions. We're a global creative production company, and we really specialize in helping find motion picture solutions to any opportunities or questions or challenges that our clients may have. And last year, I think that was really put very much to the test. One of our long-standing clients, Sotheby's, who we've looked after for a number of years, suddenly had their entire business model turned upside down. The auction, as we know it, and as we have known it for 300 plus years, suddenly couldn't take place in the way that they always have done. Usually people descend on a sale room, people flying from all over the world, the auctioneer's there, the artwork's there, and everybody is there in one room. And of course, COVID couldn't allow that anymore. So they came to us and they asked us to help them come up with a solution. And using technology and our experience in production, we were able to originate an entire kind of global live broadcast that allowed for real-time bidding to come into an auctioneer in London, bidding from New York, bidding from Asia, and we delivered the first kind of real-time high-definition live auction that had ever happened, and it set the bar for the art market moving forward. And I'm not sure things are ever really going to go back to the way that they were before.
Hi, I'm Lee Ponton. I'm Creative Director at NEXUS. We're a next-generation film and interactive studio. We're redefining the boundaries of entertainment, making animated, live-action, XR stories and entertainment. So yeah, we've been working at the cutting edge of a lot of this stuff for a while. So it's great to know that using these new production techniques like volumetric capture, we can put we can remotely deliver to people's homes on their on consumer hardware. So, for instance, we recently created a piece for Changdok Palace in South Korea, where we wanted to make an animated volumetric tour of this beautiful UNESCO World Heritage Site. And the benefits of that ended up coming out at exactly the right time, where it meant that because crowds needed to be socially distanced, they could use their own devices to walk around this beautiful site and have an actor take them around and do a great tour without putting the actor at risk, because it was a volumetrically captured actor and animated assets that could take you throughout the site. And we're also able to do a completely remote version of that, where we could send it to people's homes so they didn't have to actually go on site. So all of that kind of remote tour and tourism stuff, I think, is really going to come into its own, and remote performance especially, which is the area that I'm really interested in.
I'm Matthew. I'm the managing director and a co-founder here at FX Digital. We're an agency that specialise in video streaming. So we deliver video streaming services across web, mobile and TV. Work with the likes of Discovery on things that they do, and also clients like Royal Shakespeare as well. What we're seeing really is significant growth in the video streaming sector, as you'd expect. During lockdown, a lot of people were using their TV devices at home, so that was obviously realised. Furthermore, we're connected TV first as an agency, so we were seeing again significant growth on the connected TV front. And connected TV is a moniker for everything across smart TV, console, set-top box, streaming sticks, things like that. So people are using those devices more now that they're locked down at home. Us as an agency have experienced significant growth over the past year. We've gone from just over 20 people to now almost 50, and it really is a result of the growth in the OTT or video streaming space.
Yeah. So if what we're hearing is that, I mean, fantastic success for you guys at FX Digital as well, but that your clients have really jumped on board and sort of gone through the transformation over the last couple of months. And one of the terms that I think we have heard quite a lot over the last couple of weeks and months, and probably will continue to hear, is this idea of the new normal. But from hearing you all talk, I feel like there's a sense that it's maybe not the new normal, but we've actually been writing a new future. Because, what it would be good to know is, do you feel that some of the important changes in consumer behaviour were accelerations of existing trends, or are there things that are just emerging now?
I mean, I think last year we put things to the test that we probably could have done for a while, but we would just never have had the framework with which to risk testing whether they actually work or not. The fact that we were running global productions, but really, with our talent and our sets in different continents, but running everything from London, we would never have risked doing that before. We would always have traveled to the different locations and actually had, someone on the ground. But it was fascinating. We ran a New York sale from London, a Hong Kong sale from London. We then worked on a big separate event, reimagining what a major kind of charity fundraiser could look like, and that had a set entirely in New York City with our sort of A-list celebrity hosts. But the entire show, the entire broadcast, was run from London, and it just goes to show that it doesn't matter where you are, you can actually operate wherever the talent is. It just so happened that the talent in front of the camera was in one continent, and the talent behind the camera was in another, and that was the best talent to make it happen. And we would never, ever have tried or tested that before, but we were forced to, and it totally worked. And I think that really has changed the game.
Yeah, fascinating, Joe. Yeah, just to second that, obviously we've been through quite a growth spurt as an agency ourselves, and the talent pool that we've looked at is much wider than what it would have been if we weren't in this situation. Obviously, being based in London before, we probably would have looked quite close to home, but we have team members now that are across the globe, really, and that's a direct result of the lockdown and the situation we find ourselves in.
Yeah, I agree. We've got the same story. People are able to work from anywhere. It means you've got a really wide pool of talent, so you can get people who are really into particular projects and have really specialist skills. And it seems to have combined with, again, this accessibility through consumer technology. So, we're now able to, we've got a situation where sites are closed and theme parks and museums are closed, yet we're now able to get really high quality assets, film quality assets, cinematic talent playing in a really compelling way on a mobile phone. That didn't really exist. That wasn't really possible 2 years ago. So it's really opened things up, I think.
Yeah, and to Joel's point about travel, I know from a UKAEG point of view, normally we would go around the world to various events, but we weren't able to do that. And so we travelled around the world, and we were able to host at least 3 virtual trade missions, all from our kitchens. So it's really clear to me that the move to virtual means that we no longer have, I guess, global boundaries. And what I've heard each of you sort of touch upon is ways in which the world has become more open, and that it definitely is here to stay. And, from each of you, do you see that the world is more open than ever before? Because it feels to me like that we've made the world more accessible, across cross-generational for people with disabilities? You know, are we ripping up the rule book in terms of audience?
I mean, yes, I think the world has become a lot more accessible to everybody, and actually things that might have been, more niche or more exclusive suddenly have the opportunity to spread to more people. So, I think what's fascinating, with the auctions that we were running is we've been running multi-camera live streams of the auctions for a number of years, the major sales for Sotheby's. And we would generally have, somewhere between 2,000 to 8,000 people watching online. That was, at the start, that was before lockdown. When we came up with the auction of the future, we did 5 major broadcasts throughout last year. And by the last sale, we had over 1 million people watching every event. And if you think, you're going from 2,000 to over 1 million. And, that is because, why not? People actually realized that this was an insight into a fascinating world. It was very compelling viewing. Critics from the press were calling it, better than Netflix and the new reality TV, which is hilarious. When you start to think, this is actually an auction. But yes, it became ever so more accessible. And then when we took that to the sort of virtual fundraiser that we did, if you think about that, you would usually only have a major charity function with 500 high net worth individuals in a room. They would be the people that you invite to your charity event, spend a lot of money on it, and you're depending on those people to raise the bulk of your income. All of a sudden, through a virtual broadcast, you can have all of those 500 people, but you can also open it up to the rest of the world. And we had, I think up to 100,000 people take part in this event. And that is just, huge exposure to the charity and the brand, and also the potential for significantly more fundraising.
Yeah. I think when you take an event virtual, you naturally make it more accessible, and by making it more accessible, it's easier for someone to commit to going to that event. So all of a sudden, you'll get a much wider reach than what you would have before. I think in the future, maybe there's an expectation that all of a sudden we have to provide a virtual alternative from a business perspective, because it makes so much sense, not just from an accessibility perspective. And when accessibility and return on investment collides, it normally means good things.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's great for performance as well. I love your story, Joel, about how that's changed so much for Sotheby's. And it's like the younger generation, this has been normal for such a long time. But to your point, Aisling, the cross-generational element of this, the fact that older people now aren't fazed by this technology in a way that they frankly were even a year ago. I'm not saying we're going to have Sotheby's mashups in Fortnite, although, if you do that, then please can I help? But maybe, these worlds colliding is just a really exciting time.
Yeah, the Sotheby's mashup, I think that's something that we definitely need to make happen, Joel. Now it's been mentioned, I think we'll all go. And it, I love the idea of the, just going back to the Sotheby's auction, I love the idea of it being the new reality TV. And didn't it break a record did one of the sales break a record?
Yeah, in the first sale that we did, there was an online bid for a piece of art that was upwards of 70 million. Now, if you think about that, that's somebody who's sat at home watching a live stream and pressing their mouse down on a figure, that's upwards of 70 million. I think previous to that, the highest online bid for anything had been something like 5 million. So, just because of the very nature of something becoming virtual, it allowed, buyers from around the world to watch and take part in something in the comfort of their own home and completely faceless, be able to bid, up to an amount like that. And I think, last year, in what could have been an incredibly challenging year for our client, Sotheby's, they ended up turning over something like $5.5 billion in revenue, purely because of the virtual sales and what was able to be achieved online, which is quite extraordinary.
So I was just going to say that it's similar to the case with video streaming. So obviously nowadays there's an expectation at the moment that new releases and feature films are coming out straight to VOD services, and it'll be interesting to see how that changes going forwards when the world opens back up to some degree. Will we move back to a sort of cinema setting and people wanting to be out there? I know we're social creatures, so I suspect so. But will there now be an expectation on some of these providers like Disney Plus to also provide things like new film releases? Alternatively accessible to people that maybe necessarily don't want to go to the cinema?
I think, it's in terms of what the future holds, I think that's really interesting, because we've obviously seen this year a huge shift that we've been forced into. And actually, it's something where we couldn't actually have a physical presence most of the time. Everything had to go completely virtual. But I think that what we're going to see moving forward is actually an amalgamation of a physical and a virtual space. And I think that certainly events like the ones that we've been covering will very much have a physical audience, but will also have a virtual audience that could span to tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, or millions, where that just wouldn't have been possible before. So I think that's what's going to be really interesting, is if you want to go to something physically, you can, and if you want to go to something virtually, you also can.
To pick up on your point, Matthew, and yours, Joel, so I do think that the key to all of this is the live nature. Like, people still really crave a live experience, and so, or an immediate experience. And Matthew, you were talking about cinemas and having an accessible alternative to the cinema release. People being able to see it at home when they need. There's also the exact same thing for theatre, where I know there's some talks later on today with the wonderful work that the RSC has been doing, and Nexus have also been doing some live theatre experiments where you can have augmented reality of live actors in the living room and be able to experience that. And it really does make you think that theatre, up until now, it's such a wonderful experience, but it is by its nature exclusive, because you have a particular place that people in London or in cities that have I know it's not all London, but you have to go to a particular place. And I'm from Australia. Australia is a really big place, right? Like, to be able to remote cast live performances across a huge country, I think is super exciting and just opens things up to people.
Yeah, I think accessibility is super important. But I think what we're getting a sense for here is that people just want choice. Like, and it comes down to the whole working remotely and working from home and flexible working conditions. When we talk to our team, it's an overwhelming sense that people just want choice. So they want to be able to choose to come into the office or choose to work from home. And I think it's the same for everything, right? If there's an auction on, or if there's a film on, maybe that day you feel like watching it or experiencing it from home from your computer. Maybe not. Maybe you're up for heading in and having a couple of drinks at the auction or at the cinema, if that's the sort of thing you do.
I think that brings me nicely on to a wrap up, if you like, because I feel like we could talk about this for a lot longer. But what we've all kind of touched upon is what we've done, what's taken place this year. And I think for anybody in the audience, what would be good to know is, what should they, maybe a bit of crystal ball gazing, if you like. What should they be thinking of? What does the new audience that we've all agreed exists? We are sort of ripping up the rule books. What should they be aware of, or for the next kind of 12 or 2 years that's coming down the line?
I think to Joel's point earlier, it's basically about that, giving those options. So I think there's going to be an expectation from our audiences now that as much as events are there to be attended, there needs to be a virtual alternative. And if you don't provide that virtual alternative, you're going to be missing out on a significant proportion of audience. They're just there are going to be people that just will not fly over from Australia to London for your theatre production. And by putting it on virtually, you're opening that particular piece of content up to a significantly more sort of proportion of people.
I think our ability to consume more and our choice is going to be vast. We're going to have so much more time in the day, to go to different events, whereas it might have been one a week or whatever else. This is the fact that we won't have to travel will actually really help with that. And I think it's up to us as producers of this content, I suppose, to try and make sure that the virtual experiences get as close as we possibly can to the buzz of actually being somewhere live. and I actually think that that won't very often be something that we know today. It's going to have to be something that is going to evolve and become something entirely different. You can't replicate really being in a physical space and what that actually feels like, but you can do a lot more with technology and experience and augmented reality and whatever else to actually create an entirely new experience that has plus points that help balance out actually being somewhere.
Yeah, I agree with both of you. So I do think, as Matthew was saying earlier, it's about choice. And in the world of narrative, that's about agency. So giving people choices inside a narrative, interactive narrative, but also to Joel's point, being able to give those experiences on accessible devices. So now allowing people to use, rather than having to spend loads of money on new equipment that you use for one thing, use the technology that people already have, because we're now getting to the point where we can deliver this stuff onto devices that people already have, and that just really opens it up.
And just one other question that I have around some of the comments that you've all just made is this idea of there is a lot of tech out there now. We know that even things like headsets, for example, they sold out. The demand is high. For a brand that is maybe considering going down the tech route, so doing something, how important is storytelling and narrative when it comes to that decision?
I think storytelling and go on, Kim-LEIGH. We're probably going to say the same thing.
Storytelling is wonderful. Storytelling is the thing that helps people make meaning from everything. It feels like the younger generation that's coming through more into experience than storytelling. So it's the crossover between the two. I think when you cross storytelling with agency and experience, that's when you really hit that sweet spot. And we've got we've got new forms of tech. So the new Quest that came out, you've got WebXR can now be delivered there. So you don't have to create. It just lowers the barriers for brands to get involved in that space.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, tech without storytelling is short-lived. It's a gimmick. Tech with storytelling is what we all crave out of everything. It's why we love the art, the movies. It's why we love music. It's why we love the theatre. It's because we are given an insight into a world, or we're told stories, and we're entertained. And I think that technology can help with that. It should never replace it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Obviously, I'm a huge fan of technology, but I also appreciate and understand that humans are social creatures, like I said before. So, me personally, I can't wait until the 21st of June when I can actually, go out and experience the world and do things again. And I think, as much as we know that technology is going to play an important role going forwards, I think, in the short term, at least, there's going to be almost like a festival of people wanting to be out and about, experiencing things, seeing people where possible. So yeah, I'm really excited for that.
From my desk, what I'm thinking is really important over the next sort of 12 months is brand purpose and trust. We've all seen those images of the clean water that happened around March last year or April last year, and the idea that nature was healing itself was trending. And I think audiences, consumers, they want action in line with statements that are made. From a UK advertising point of view, we often talk about being one of the world's most sustainable sectors in the world. And we want people to trust that. So we make sure we back up bold statements with real action. And we have a number of initiatives, such as Ad Net Zero, which is our program to get UK advertising to real net zero by the end of 2030. A big challenge, I think.
Yeah, we're seeing a lot of work. So there's been a backlash against technology in many ways. That's true, and it's justified. But there's been some fantastic stuff that technology has brought through, not least the ecological sustainability of having to travel less and being able to work, across different time zones, as well as, for instance, in Live AR, the augmented reality theatre piece that we recently did, because we separated gender and ethnicity from the character, it means you can deliver character-based performances with a fluidity, if you like, that doesn't restrict people to gender or ethnicity. And in a world of Me Too and Black Lives Matter, that becomes really exciting, being able to include everybody across all stories. So I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, I think whether we've just experienced a pandemic or not, I think the world is changing. We all know that. There's an expectation now on us as business owners, me for example, that we provide different sort of options for people in terms of sustainability and mental health and all these sorts of things. Like, no more can we just do the great good for the shareholders of the business. It has to be about more than that. People really care about purpose, and we for example have just place one of the team members in a position of sustainability advocate in our business, because I really do believe that in order to be taken seriously as a business these days, you need to have a real focus on things like sustainability, ethics, and mental health.
I love the idea that, with breaking down geographical borders, you can actually provide experiences for everybody. If it's everyone's on a level playing field for the first time, I think, if you can't physically go and see an event because of a disability, then you can still have an opportunity to experience it just like everybody else. And I think that's an amazing thing.
The new normal, it's really clear, is a term that has been often used to describe the seismic shift in the way we work and play. It's really clear there are aspects of our lives that have changed forever, and this must be reflected in the way we market brands, products, services, now and in the future. I would like to say a big thank you to Joel, Kim, Matt for joining me and sharing their insights into the new world and the new audience.